is Nigel Farage's stance on Ukraine wrong? Well, here is the Prime Minister responding to Mr Farage questioning his statement on Ukraine in Parliament just yesterday.
Can I just remind him, Russia is the aggressor. Zelenskyy is a war leader whose country has been invaded. And we should all be supporting him and not fawning over Putin.
Fawning over Putin. Well, astonishing scenes, because yesterday the Shadow Foreign Secretary, Dame Priti Patel, also steamed into the Reform UK leader.
He should be absolutely calling out President Putin for his behaviour, for the fact that he is an aggressor.
Is it right to compare Farage with Corbyn?
Well, Jeremy Corbyn never stood up to Putin and never basically acknowledged that Putin was responsible for what were state-sponsored, state-sanctioned deaths in our own country. We cannot tolerate malign forces acting in this way.
Well, comparing Nigel Farage to Jeremy Corbyn, that has to be a first. Now, even the Liberal Democrat leader, Sir Ed Davey, had a pop at Mr Farage.
We were all horrified by Friday's scenes in the Oval Office. President Trump's attack on the brave and dignified President Zelenskyy left everyone shocked and appalled, except, it seems, the honourable member for Clacton.
OK, ding ding, let's have a ding-dong about this. And I'm joined to debate this in the studio by Reform UK's mayoral candidate for Greater Lincolnshire, Dame Andrea Jenkins, and the Labour activist Chris Worrall. Welcome to the studio, both of you. Dame Andrea, I'm going to start with you as a representative of Reform UK. It seems they're all queuing up to have a dig. You've got the Labour Party, Keir Starmer, Priti Patel, comparing Nigel to Jeremy Corbyn, Ed Davey, naturally having a dig. Now, Mr Farage has been singled out for what they are saying or fawning over Mr Putin. Some have even called him a Putin apologist. Is there anything in this, or is it just the entire establishment ganging up on your man?
It's the entire establishment ganging up on Nigel. I mean, if you actually look back at some of his previous speeches in the European Parliament, lots of times he called out Putin and the threat of Putin. And this just plays into the rhetoric trying to align Nigel with Putin, which the opposition parties to ourselves are doing. And they want to make somebody a bad guy, and it's him. And I do actually think that Starmer didn't handle it correctly. I mean, look at Trump. When I first watched those clips, I was aghast and I thought, oh gosh, I was cringing at it, and I even tweeted about it. But when I actually watched the 50-minute full interview, you see a different perspective and a lot more balanced perspective. But look, Trump is clearly a strong negotiator from what we're seeing out today. But America, look, they make up over 60-odd% of the NATO budget. These are main players. Our deterrent is reliant on the US with the submarines. And so to discount Trump from the table as Starmer did, I think that was wrong. You know, we should be bringing him into the fold and all being grown up about this together. And the second thing as well, which really confuses me, Martin, is the fact that all the years I was an MP and when the war in Ukraine began, the rhetoric from all parties, all mainstream media was, do not put any British boots on the ground because it'll escalate to World War III. So I want to know what's changed. Is what Starmer's trying to do, is that going to escalate things? OK, let's bring it back to the topic, though, about Mr Farage. Chris Worrall, what's your take on Nigel Farage's position on Ukraine?
Well, I think Nigel sort of flip-flops so much on Putin, you think he's sponsored by Habayanas. Like, the geezer's just a joke. If you look at Nathan Gill, the links to Putin are there. He was the Reform UK Wales leader. I
don't know if he was, actually.
Well, I'm pretty sure he was.
I don't think he was a Reform UK...
Anyway, he's definitely... I understand he was a Wales Reform leader, or at least in the European Parliament under Reform. And he was paid, or found to have...
Get back onto Mr Farage.
Well, I am just saying the links to Farage is that he took bribes to make pro-Russian statements. So when we get back to what Priti Patel said, you know, Farage has done a full Corbyn on this.
Look, you've been in the Labour Party for years under Corbyn, so what he did by association, though.
Fighting against him,
so does that mean everybody in the Labour Party is responsible for everybody in the Labour Party? Of course not.
What I'm saying is, in the Labour Party, we were happy to call out for Corbyn on his stances on Putin and anti-NATO.
But Nigel's called out Putin lots of times.
Well, he hasn't called. What's he said about Nathan Gill?
But you even look at his social media, and he's called out Putin lots of times, and about how dangerous he is.
Yeah, but that's the point. He's flip-flopping so much.
It's not flip-flopping.
He has.
No, it's actually not flip-flopping.
The only difference between him and Corbyn is the suit and the pint.
Oh,
that's the
what
honest
rubbish.
truth. It is.
You're only saying that because as a party you fear actually Farage taking your votes. That's what this comes down to.
Look, at the end of the day, if Nigel Farage was anti-establishment means lacking accountability on Brexit, and sort of dodging...
always come back to Brexit.
Well, it is. Well, I mean, he talked about Brexit freedoms, didn't he, today, Farage? I mean, what are they? Allow freedoms for smuggling gangs to just plough over people illegally without any deportations agreement. He was part of the whole brigade, the cheerleaders for Brexit, and then he's forgotten that he was part of the team as soon as the issues start coming up.
Let's get back on point about Vladimir Putin. You know, we can all go off on various tangents, but look, is it the case that politically we do often seem to have uniformity? We saw that with COVID. Anybody who challenged lockdowns was cast out as a heretic on that. And I think we've seen...
And we saw it with Brexit, didn't we?
And on Brexit, and I think a lot of people say the same, that there has been a deification of Volodymyr Zelenskyy. Anybody who speaks out against Zelenskyy has been chastised and castigated, and it's perfectly reasonable. But it's quite reasonable. No, hang on a minute.
It's not.
Is it not right?
No.
Mr Farage yesterday said he wanted to know how many troops will be deployed from Britain and how much was this going to cost. That's not being sucking up to Putin. They're perfectly valid.
That's the whole point. He's flip-flopped on it, because the other week he was, you know, at the end of the day, he can't be going sort of, you know, calling, you know, with Zelenskyy, telling him that he needs to run an election in the middle of a war.
No,
like, what kind of banana statements are those?
Can I come back to your question, actually,
yeah, go on,
Martin?
line.
Like, I think it's a case of it's the establishment have formed a view, just as they did in Brexit, just as they did with net zero. You know, we have an homogenised view on net zero that if anybody speaks out against it, you're a zealot. And it's the same here. So it's stopping scrutiny. We saw it with lockdowns. We saw when Boris said about going on herd immunity. Look how all the papers, the newspapers, all the media lambasted him. And we're seeing it now. You know, there's nothing wrong with challenging. It's right to challenge. And surely that's Nigel's an MP, is in a position to challenge and get answers. That's what politics should be about. Politics should not be about just agreeing with each other constantly.
And Chris, isn't that the point there? There's a constant feeling that the player is being played here and not the ball.
No, I mean, Farage has shown he's got a blind spot for dictators, just the way Corbyn has had a blind spot for terrorists. And what we've seen is Starmer.
He deserves to sue you over that question.
No,
that is
blind
ridiculous.
Spot. It's a blind spot because, you know, 2014, he was inspired by him. He said that a long time ago. And pirating the Russian lines, we've seen that in the recent weeks. But he was a bit quiet.
Well, you've got a blind spot sucking you up to Labour defending them still. And look what they're doing to the pensioners, to the farmers. You've got a blind spot there, haven't you?
You know, Starmer's been trusted by Putin to lead the UK Defence Contact Centre. Him and Trump's been driving a hard bargain. So the fourth stage of the brinkmanship rule, you know, ask for something ridiculous, escalate the tensions, let it collapse. And we saw that last night. And now we've got, you know, Zelensky's coming back to the table with a begging bowl, which is that's the only way he's going to get Putin to get there. That's what Trump's doing. But Starmer over the weekend has managed to get the whole of the Europe around and actually make this thing actually possible.
Surely it's proved
that... He should have had Trump.
But surely it's proved that...
It's only happened since Starmer's come into power.
Oh,
my God. Hang on a minute.
Starmer's come in and it's all got sorted out. That's how it looks of it.
Look what percentage of NATO we give...
Are you seriously saying, Chris, that Donald Trump has only miraculously come to the table with a deal today because of Keir Starmer?
I think together, what they've been able to... Well, look, remember, UK, and I'll tell you why, UK is the second behind America.
What's in your tea?
No, I haven't got any tea. I've not a glass of water at GB News these days. But Keir Starmer in the UK is one of the second biggest supporters of Ukraine financially, right? When we talk about this minerals deal, the minerals agreement, that is what was meant to be signed on the Friday. The UK and the US will be the ones sorting that out. We will be putting our boots on the ground to defend the UK and US interests in how the Ukraine will repay for the war, the loans that be made out for the war.
All right, Chris, thank you. Dame Andrea Jenkins, quick, 10 seconds to your final word.
Look, I disagree with Starmer. Look, he can find money for Ukraine, but he can't even defend our own borders. That's what I think's a joke at the moment. That's what I'm getting on the doorstep. He should have had Trump around the table, and he actually should have left it to Trump, actually, and we could have worked together on this. And it's actually not Starmer that's done this.